A Greek artist loses his love and his art.
Welcome to Soul Guide with Vondie Lozano, a show about past lives, life between lives, and this life.
Hey, everybody, it's Vondie, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. And we have a special guest, Maggie, who's going to share about her past life session. And in January, she'll be back to share about her life between lives session. So I'm really excited to have her here with us today, and I'm going to have her join us now. There you are. Let me unmute you. Hi
Hi,
there. Hi, Maggie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, I usually ask a little bit of background just so people can get to know you. So, maybe tell us a little bit about where you grew up or your family or anything, what you do, anything like that about yourself. And I know we're having a little internet issue, so don't stress if we freeze up a little bit here and there.
Right, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm originally from Southern Louisiana, which is where I am now, which is part of why the service is so bad because I'm in a rural area. Um,
On her
but
Christmas vacation, taking time to be
yeah,
with us, I might add.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's nice. But yeah, so I'm from here. My family's pretty artistic and things like that, and I ended up moving up to Boston about 5 years ago. So I've been living there on and off. Went up there for music school and then just kind of stuck around. And now I have a day job as a manager in a grocery store and I really like it and doing music things on the side. And it's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, nice. And so this has got to be a really hectic time for you. I mean, I know you're on vacation, but leading up to this with the holidays and all of that.
Yeah, yeah. People like their Christmas shopping.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, but it's fun. I kind of like the crazy environment. Keeps you busy.
Okay, good. Okay, and then a little bit about what drew you to even doing your sessions in the first place. That's always fun for people to hear.
Yeah, so I kind of got introduced to like more spiritual things. I don't know, maybe when I was a teenager. I was raised up very Catholic, like all sides of my family are very Catholic.
Hmm.
Um, but I got introduced to holistic medicine because I was dealing with some physical ailments and stuff.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
that led into like this kind of spiritual version of therapy as well.
Hmm.
And then called advanced integrative therapy. It's really cool. But and just the more spiritual things, then I would learn about books and other stuff like that. And basically, I was introduced to the Newton books.
Michael
And
Newton. And it's interesting you say that because that was one of the turning points in my life was I had chronic fatigue syndrome as a young adult. And
oh,
when I sought out alternative medicine because they didn't know what to do with it with Western medicine, the
yeah,
person who was helping me heal was a holistic healer. And she said, your psychic abilities will start to kind of develop. And she called it a healing crisis. And part of what helped me open up, that was one of my first steps. So I think that's interesting that sometimes the body draws us to these alternative things that we wouldn't have investigated otherwise.
yeah, absolutely. And when I was always interested in more spiritual things anyway, like they just were fascinating, even if I didn't necessarily believe they were true. I was just like, huh, that's interesting. And so that was kind of the thought with the Journey of Souls books is you're
Mhm.
reading it and it just kind of blows your mind. Like it was
Right.
a whole different perspective for everything. And so my takeaway, like I was just like, even if all of this is just crazy and complete nonsense, it's very interesting and it sounds really cool and it's a cool way to think about things.
Interesting
Uh,
nonsense.
yeah, exactly. And then yeah. And then yeah, I don't know. Then I waited a little bit, but I don't know, it just kind of felt right to have a session now for whatever reason. I was just kind of curious about it. And so then I found you, and here
Oh,
we are.
well, I'm glad you did. Oh, and we have David chiming in. Hello, hello, and other people. Enos Anderson. I hope I'm saying your name right. Good evening. Good evening. I wonder where she is. Good evening. Okay. Good to have you here with us. And good to have you here with us, David. So it's always fun. I was telling Maggie to when we do it live because we get to see you chiming in. And so we welcome your comments even as we go through Maggie's story. Oh, and Sharon. Oh, yay. Yeah, as I was telling Maggie, the session interviews to me are the most interesting and everyone's favorite. So it doesn't surprise me we have people showing up today. So yes, feel free to ask questions or make comments. Maggie and I can both see. And I start to say Margot, that's your real name, but I know you go by Maggie, so I'll probably go
Yeah.
back and forth. Okay, so are you ready to start talking about your story?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
know we I know we both kind of listened to it this week to refresh our memory, even though we just did it last month, maybe a
Yeah, it
couple of
wasn't
weeks
that long
ago. It wasn't
ago.
that long ago at all. But to me, and I apologize, I'm trying to move closer. And earlier, I don't know if people saw I was messing with the camera, trying to get it in the right position. But yeah, it was really interesting when I listened to it yesterday. I don't know about you or the other day. I was surprised it was a little more emotional than I remembered.
Yes. No, same.
Yeah.
I remember, like, having emotions during it and stuff, but listening back, I was like, yeah, no, it was a lot more emotional than I
Yeah.
remembered.
Okay. So I just kind of go through the session start to finish. So what do you remember about when you kind of emerged into the first scene? Oh, Maggie, were you exhausted after your session? Sharon wants to know.
I wasn't exhausted, isn't the word I would use, but, like, because it was emotional, I think after this session in particular, like, I just felt like I had a lot to process,
Mhm.
or stuff I wanted to process kind of on my own. Um, but yeah, I wasn't tired. And after the LBL, I definitely was not tired. I was kind of
Yeah, you were
like
like, your mind was
energized.
blown.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the hard part. When Maggie and I met earlier in the week, the hard part is to not talk then about today's session. I said, let's save it for the show. And then we'll try to save the LBL for next time because, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it was off the hook incredible.
Right.
Okay. So you emerged. We say, where are you? We kind of start with, what are you wearing? Do you remember? And then the story kind of slowly starts to unfold.
Yeah, because I remember you asked me, like, if I was moving or
Oh,
standing, and
yeah.
I said,
Standing, sitting, moving, lying down. Yeah.
yeah, and I said moving, and then you asked, like, if what I was moving on was hard or soft, and I said soft, but it's because I was on a horse and I was feeling the horse,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And then you
Yeah.
asked me about shoes, and I got confused, but then it was like then I realized it was a horse there, and then I could see the rest of the stuff more clearly.
Yeah, and you had sandals on your feet
I had sandals
and
and a toga.
a toga, and I was like, "A toga?" And so sandals and a toga, and then do you remember where you were headed or what you were doing or any of
I
that?
remember yeah, it was nighttime, and I was heading back towards the city or the village or
Mhm,
town, to go home from the day.
mhm.
'Cause I think I'd been working in the fields that day.
Yeah, and I always tell people I have my notes taped to my ring light behind the computer, so if you see me looking up, I should probably just pretend I'm thinking, but I'm actually kinda looking to make sure we don't leave anything out. So, yes, and I have down short and brown, and I couldn't remember if brown was the skin or the hair.
I think I think I had dark eyes and dark hair, but I think my skin was not super dark. I think it was a little on the lighter side.
Okay, and then do you remember where you were?
In
Coun
Greece.
Greece, yeah, and I wrote down the year. Do you remember the year?
I just because I listened to it yesterday, but it was like in the 500s, like 534 or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, exactly. And I always feel like I'm putting people on the spot because, first of all, I'm not as under as you are, so I remember more. But you remember more detail because you can't get all the words out in the session. So I always find out things that I didn't even know about when we do this. But
Yeah,
sometimes people are like, no, because you don't remember all these things. But since you went through it, it's a little fresher for you.
it's a little
Yeah. So
fresh. Yeah,
yeah, so I guess that's the 6th century. I always get that mixed up, the 500s or the
yeah.
6th century, but Greece, and you had been working in the fields and you were heading back home. And then do
Mhm.
you remember much about your home?
I remember it was a hut, like a very small kind of hut, like very low living, I guess. And I think I don't think I had said this to you because
Oh, see, this is the part I
yeah,
like. I find out things.
'cause I
Yes.
think I lived there with other people, but it
Oh,
wasn't, like, family. I think it was, like, other people that worked in the field. Um,
oh,
because you asked like where my bed was, and it was like on the floor in the corner, and you asked if I slept alone or with someone, and I slept alone, but I had this sense that like there were other people that had like beds around the floor or something.
Oh. Oh, yeah, see, I didn't get that. I thought you lived alone. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think like I mean, just by myself, I was like very much in my own headspace, and in that sense, I lived alone. But there were other people living in the like little
Okay.
hut too.
Okay. And I think there was a fire or something keeping you warm. I remember that.
Yeah, yeah, like some kind of hearth or fireplace or whatever equivalent that would be in the 6th century hut.
Okay. Okay. So it was a hut for the workers, basically,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
working in the field. Okay. Okay. All right. And then from there, we went back to the childhood. And what do you remember
Mhm.
about the childhood?
I really liked it. I remember I was young and I really liked my mom. I think she was kinda like my favorite person.
You said she was
Um,
funny.
yeah, I think she made me laugh a lot, and I really enjoyed like, there was just so much love and warmth there.
Mhm.
And even, like, my dad too, I think he was, like, just a very warm, happy person, and I remember I had an older brother and an older cousin that lived with us. Um, but yeah, that little scene, it was just there was just so much, like, familial love and safety and, like, support. It was really nice. It felt really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I remember you were happy and safe and loved were the words.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
it felt great.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it was very sweet.
Mhm.
And then we said to go to, I believe the next one is a significant moment. And this was where I actually misunderstood in the beginning.
Yeah,
You said a
yeah.
friend was getting married, and actually who was getting married?
Basically the love of my life.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And it's funny because you were a man. Oh, and do you remember the name?
Toman. So I think it was actually, like, Thomas, but, like, Toman was a nickname of that. So it was, like, a Greek version of Thomas, or maybe that is it, I don't know, but
Toman. Yeah, I had
mhm,
Toman. I think I was maybe saying Toman, but Toman. Okay. And
mhm,
he was 32. I had written
yes.
down. Okay.
Mhm.
So even though you're a woman, you emerged in a past life as a man, but I kind of forgot. And so you said a friend is getting married. And I was like, oh, your friend is getting married. Like I thought it was all a good thing. And then you were like, yeah, no.
Yeah, 'cause I remember you had said, like, "Oh, yeah, just sit and, like, enjoy that love and, like, that happy moment," and I just I, like, wanted to, like, sit for a moment, but then I was like, "No, that's not what this is."
Yeah, you said it's not happy. I'm sad. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh, and then I remembered, oh wait, yeah, she's a man. And then I said, are you in love with this person?
yeah, and I was, yeah.
Yeah.
That was something I got to because I remember you had asked me if she knew that I was in love with her,
Right.
and I said yes, um, and I it was, like, other intuitive hits I was getting, I guess,
Mhm.
about, that is I think it was an arranged marriage situation
Oh.
because I mean, we haven't gotten to this part yet, but I was kind of like a starving artist kind of thing at the time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I couldn't really provide a lot for her and especially in her family's eyes, and
Hmm.
so I, yeah, so she was arranged to marry someone else, and she did because I guess she wanted to on some level too, I don't know, but
Wow. And see, I love this because I'm getting way more of the story than I get in the moment. Because in the moment, you're just answering my questions. And when you
yeah.
said intuitive hit, the whole thing is intuitive. So you get to trust that. Your
Mhm.
internal knowing is just as valid as a movie unfolding before your eyes.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow. So did you get the sense that she had any choice in the arranged marriage?
I think she did. I mean, it could have been one of those things where it's like you feel like you don't have a choice kind of thing because you're basically choosing a life of maybe struggling but like being really happy together and like just like financially not doing so well, or having a life where you're kind of taken cared for and you can be content and happy. And I think it was just taking maybe in my mind because I was biased, but it was just like taking the easy route and like she was doing what she felt was best for her.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. And then a happy, proud moment in the life.
Yeah. That
Do you
was,
remember?
Yeah, that was whenever I was showing. You'll see I'm freezing.
That's okay. It's okay.
Okay,
I can hear you, and you unfreeze pretty quickly, so it's
okay,
good.
cool. Um, yeah, a happy proud moment is whenever I was showing her my art. I
Mhm.
had done a portrait of her, um, and she loved it, and it was just very exciting because I cared a lot about her and art itself, and then she loved it, and so that was really, really special.
Yeah, and did she sit for the portrait? I was trying to remember that.
Yeah, I think we were kind of like before the arranged before the arranged marriage part, I think we were kind of like courting. Maybe it was like secretly courting, but yeah, so like she stood for the portrait.
Okay,
Um,
and she liked it.
yeah. hmm
Okay, all right. And then the most important person in that life was kind of related to your art.
Yeah, it was my art teacher. He just it was just I think I said in the session he was like a second father.
Mhm.
Um, when really like I feel like I could have just gone to him for anything at any
Mm,
time. Like he did support me in my art and was like great at teaching me those things, but he also like we would talk about life and everything else. And so I think I talked to him like he was my mentor and everything,
mm.
and he was kind of yeah, my favorite person, I think.
Yeah, I remember saying, "What do you talk about?" And you said everything.
hmm
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we got a comment from David, "To see the love of your life marry someone else must have been heartbreaking."
it was. It was. Oh yeah, because that was. I remember you asked me anything else significant happened on that day,
Mhm.
or like during the wedding or something. And I said, I just know I'm going to be alone. Because
Oh,
at
yeah.
that point, I had like resigned myself. I was like, I just know I'm going to be alone forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then for those of you who haven't done this before or these sessions, we take a moment and let you heal and process those feelings. And sometimes people are surprised. There's some sadness, there's some emotion. And it's good to release it because you've been holding it for 200, or in this case, 1,500 years, you know? So
Yeah.
we
Time
allow
to let it
you
go.
such a moment to feel it and then let it go. Exactly. Which
Yeah.
kind of brings us to the turning point. Oh, Sonia's chiming in. Do you know that person in your current life?
We didn't specifically ask about that one, but I have a feeling it's probably, yeah, I think we touched on that. And I think it's the person that was Sarah in my LBL session,
Okay. Did
but
we talk about that specifically? I don't remember.
we didn't touch on that in this session. We didn't ask that.
Mhm.
So
But
I'm not positive, but
in the Life Between Lives, did we have a hit? Oh, I think we did. When we got to the soul group. Okay.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
have to stay tuned for uh part 2, Sonia, because we did. Yes, we did find out who that person was in this life.
yeah.
So when we got to the turning point, excuse me, I said, what's the turning point? And then you were back on the horse.
Yeah, yeah.
We said
Um,
I say a turning point in the life where you something changes or something happens, or you just have a really important realization. And Sonia says, "I will do. Thank you. Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you then, Sonia." And great questions. We love the questions because that's what brings us more to life. So thank you for the questions. But yeah, do you remember what the aha moment or the turning point realization was?
yeah, I just like missed my chance was like the words that came out. I
Mhm.
just feel like I had just I realized I had given up, I think, on
Mhm.
everything, and I felt like I missed my chance for
Mhm. And I remember saying in art or in love?
I was like both.
Yeah. Yeah, because you left the city, I think after she married someone else, you left the city and were now working in the field, and I don't
Mhm.
know if you were still doing your art, but you had kinda left your art and your love, really.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I know yeah, I know I had ended up leaving the city, and I think part of it was I knew I could make or I felt like I could make more money for myself working in the fields than working doing art stuff, because that was something I think I'd been struggling with for a long time, is I really wanted to pursue art and live like this happy dream of, painting and sculpting and all that kind of stuff. But uh, I think I just really took a blow with Sophie, and yeah, so I just kind of left it all behind, and was like, all right, I'll just try something completely different then and see if I can make a change.
Yeah. And I think this was the moment, or maybe it's the next one. No, I'm looking when it's turning point where you said there's just not a chance. And that was kind of a really that was the moment that surprised me when I was listening back to the session again.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's just because at the start of the session, whenever we were asked if like I worked in, or when we first got into the session, and then you asked if I worked in the fields all day after I said that. And you said if there anything else I like to do. And I remember just like lighting up like as soon as I thought about painting and art. And it was just like such this strong passion and emotion. It was just a way to capture life. And it was something I felt so
Mhm.
passionate about and studying and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then at that moment when we're at the turning point, I just completely lost that. I think I was so depressed and just so feeling all of these like very, I don't know, just so sad about life and feeling like I'll never be able to be with Sophie. I'll never be able to like really pursue my art. Like I'm just going to be trapped in this cycle of working the fields every day till I die. And I just feel like I'd missed my chance for everything, and my life was basically a waste. It was the all the feelings there.
Yeah. It was sad. I was surprised. Not then. Then I wasn't surprised, but when I listened to it yesterday, I had forgotten that how powerful of emotion it was.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
David, the two biggest loves of your life. Absolutely.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. Mhm.
And then reflecting on that life, um, well, I'll ask you, do you remember much about the reflections? And then even on the final day, they were kind of the same sort of things, asking you, what did you think about that life?
Yeah, I remember, like, the reflections, I just felt like I could have done more. I felt like, in a way, I kind of wasted my life,
Mhm.
because I just didn't do the things I wanted to,
Yeah.
um, and so that was yeah. Because whenever we're talking about, like, whenever I leave the body, when I finally pass on,
Hmm.
um, you asked, like, if I was if I stayed around or, to like talk or reach out to people that I knew, or if I left already, and it was just immediately I was gone. It's like I wanted nothing more to do with that life. I was just so done. I think I was
Right.
disappointed like with myself, and like there were just such strong emotions that I just like sped off as soon as I could.
Get me out of here. Get me out of here.
Yeah.
And can you share a little bit about how you died, just so people can know that part?
Yeah, I died in the fields. I don't know if I
Hmm.
was working necessarily, but I was in the fields and I had a heart attack. 'Cause you asked me about the last day of the life, and then all of a sudden I, like, felt like I couldn't breathe, and then
Hmm.
I just felt me, like, crash down to the ground, and I was gone.
Hmm. You said it was pretty short. I remember
It
saying,
was,
what
yeah.
did it feel like to die? You were like, it was really fast.
Yeah, it was super fast. It was just kind of gone like that.
Okay. And then who greeted you when you crossed over?
My guide, Patricia.
Hmm. And tell
Yeah.
me about that. What was that being like, and what was that experience like?
It was cool. It was intense, but in a really good way.
Mhm.
'Cause, like, it's just, like, the energy that they have around them is just so potent, I guess. It's so strong, and it felt really good. They basically just wrapped me in, like, this really big loving hug, and, just kinda helped me, like, wash away all the things I was feeling and carrying, and it felt really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I know most of you know this, but in case you don't, this is your guide who has been with you since your soul was created. So it's a really special, special bond. And then I
Yeah.
asked, what was the purpose in that life? I was surprised. It was independence.
Mm.
And then did you accomplish that purpose? And I was more surprised when what they said.
Yeah. They said no.
I was like, really? In what way?
Yeah, because I think it's like, I mean, like, I was independent in the sense that I was living on my own and things like that, but I think true independence is living in a more heart-centered way,
Hmm.
where you're able to, like, obviously provide for yourself and do all these things, but you're also able to trust your instincts that you have and, like, trust the actions that you wanna take and, live fully, I guess, maybe, like, live, like, loudly and fully, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. They said things kind of like you didn't take the chances when you could have, or you didn't take the actions when you could have. And I wonder, did you have a sense of what they meant by that? What actions you were supposed to take or do differently?
I think because I was listening to that yesterday, and I was waiting for, like, more specifics,
Hmm.
but I think, like, my guide intentionally kept it very vague because it's still supposed to be, like, me trusting myself, but I think it was just kind of trusting that even if things with Sophie didn't work out, like, that doesn't mean that I couldn't have, like, continued to live my life and, like, meet other people or meet maybe there was someone else or maybe there was even with art, like, maybe there's, like, different routes I could have taken where I basically didn't just shut down and give up, which is what I did in that life. So just something where I could have had more faith in myself and have more faith in the world and the people around me and trust that things will work out and things will be okay. You just gotta follow your heart, basically.
Right. Which brings me to, why were we shown that past life today? What does this have to do with the Maggie life? And
I
this
feel
gets a
like
little
it has
personal, so you can share as much or as little as you want. And before we do that, sounds like they wanted you to find joy in your independence.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, and yeah, so and how that relates to this life, there are just so many parallels, honestly, in that life and this life, if not in like direct circumstances and like the feelings and the emotions and
Mm.
the experiences, but it I because that was like one of my biggest struggles, honestly, after I had this session, the
Mhm.
past life session, is I afterwards I was like, why was I shown that life? I was like,
Mhm.
is it just to know that I was sad then and I'm like sad now sometimes? Like what what was the
Mhm.
point?
What do they want me to do with that? Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, "What?" Like, yeah. But now, having, like, sat with it and I realized, like, at the beginning of that life, I was so happy and, like, so
Very
loving, like,
much.
in family connections, and, like, I was open to people, and, like, I was just
Right.
living openly and joyously, and, um, and that was, like, something that I think was important for me to remember. And
Mhm.
then also, I think it's also a maybe a reflection of how much or how differently I am handling things in this life.
Mm.
So even if like sometimes things do feel similar and I do struggle with the same thing, I feel I have taken more actions in this life and like processing things a little differently. So in a way, I feel like while yes, a lot of the things were very similar and still ring true for me in this life, um, ultimately, I feel like I am able to process things a lot better and I'm not shutting down completely and giving up, I guess, like I did in that life.
Yeah. Well, and again, for those of you who are thinking about having sessions, or even if you've had sessions, you know that we get to continue to work on these lessons, if you will. And so they showed you a life with a similar lesson, but now you're handling it a little bit differently.
Yeah. And so I think it was like their way of kind of showing me how or like that I've progressed some as
Mhm.
well. Like, even if it does, you know, even if it is the same kind of lessons, I'm still like progressing a little bit, which is nice. But I think it was mainly for those little happy memories at the beginning to show me or to remind me what it is like to live like that.
Yeah. Because you were playing, you were very, carefree. I remember it was a really
Hmm.
happy childhood.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Thanks.
I wrote down some of the messages they had for you, but they're a little bit personal. Is it alright if I
Yeah,
share a couple?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so and the reason I share them is just because I've been told that sometimes the messages are for the rest of us too. Like, if you resonate with it, it's okay to sort of go, "Oh, wow, that's a great message for me to hear."
Yeah.
So, um, they said, I'm trying to read my writing. "Things don't have to be perfect." That was a great one for me to hear. "It's okay to exist in the moment and just enjoy." And then you had a feeling of wholeness. Do you remember that?
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
was that
think
like?
that I think that's kind of more of the what I was trying to communicate earlier with that sense of independence that I
Mm.
was, like, coming here to learn. It's, like, not just being independent and not depending on the world around me. It's, like, truly feeling whole in myself and, like, being
Got it.
able to live, like that, I guess.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. And
Yeah.
then be brave and not worry so much. That's a big one for me. It's kind
Yep,
of a
yep.
worry word. So that was a great one. David, yes, I resonate with this powerful message hitting home for sure. Yeah, that's why I wanted to share. And
Mhm.
again, I so appreciate Maggie being willing to share because these are personal sessions. It's not just, was I Cleopatra in a past life? Most of us weren't. We were just
Yeah.
regular people, but the guides pick a specific life that will give you help in this life today. And so that's why it can help Maggie, but it also helps the rest of us when she shares some of these really amazing messages from her guide. Trust people, open your heart.
Mhm.
Again, that's a big one for me. And then not fear others. Oh, and then I don't remember the question I asked, but your guide said she's important.
Yeah, so that was, 'cause that was whenever you asked, why I was being drawn to having one of these sessions in the
Mhm,
first place,
mhm.
and what my guide said was, uh, to basically to gain an awareness of my place,
That's
and
what it
then you
was, your place, yeah.
yeah, and then you asked what my place was, and then my guide said, "She's important," and what that means is just, like I mean, we're all important is what that actually means is, it's like, even though I'm one person and going through, like, these maybe hard experiences or these really tough emotions.
You know what, Maggie? You broke up a little bit. Can you say that again? Because this is important. This is
Yeah.
important how important you are.
Um, yeah, I think, like, what they were saying was just, like, I'm important just like every single individual is important. It's
Mhm.
because, like, we each of us is a my words for it is a divine expression of all that is, and
Yeah.
so, like, your like, my experience, even if it felt really small and I wanted nothing to do with that life and I just wanted to give up, like, I'm still valid and, like, my existence is valid just because I exist in the first place, you know? And so it's kind of that's why I was drawn to this session to have, like it was really to gain an awareness and a better understanding of my place.
Yeah. And then I can't wait for the second session for us to talk about that because we found out so many cool things about what you're up to over there and really who you are as a soul.
It's really cool. But, yeah,
It
I
was
loved,
really
like yeah, that was really because I remembered most of the session as it was, but the parts that I were a little foggy on were actually, like, the advice from my guides at the end of the session.
Mhm.
So it was really nice to listen back to that yesterday to hear them. Because the one that resonated with me, I mean, they all resonated with me, but the one that resonated the most was it was saying, like, things don't have to be perfect,
Mhm.
and oh, like, for the what was the experience one? Like, or
Experiencing wholeness?
no, there was one that you read, and I'm trying to remember the wording for it. Um, It was mm, really, it was things don't have to look a certain way, or an experience like a moment doesn't have to be anything. It can just like you can just exist in every moment exactly as it is and enjoy it. Like it doesn't have to actually be anything in the sense that like things don't have to be perfect. You don't have to make every moment mean something. Like every moment means something just because you're here and you're experiencing it.
Absolutely. And you know what? I actually have your session notes right here. If you want me to look and see, I can look a little more close. Oh, shoot. I thought I
It was
had
one
it.
of the ones you had written down. It was just an
One of the
expansion
ones
on
I
it.
just said today, the ones
Mm,
it was, let me look. Exist in the moment, and then things don't have to be perfect. And there was actually a little more. There was like a second sentence, but something about things don't have to be perfect. It's okay to exist in the moment and just enjoy. But there was
yeah.
even a little more than that.
Yeah, that was basically it. It was like it's okay to exist in the moment, and the moment doesn't have to be anything. And that was just something that's really big for me because I always feel like things have to be important to see progress or to like move forward, but
Right, right.
you
But
can
just
just exist as
in the
you are
moment.
now.
Okay.
And
And I see your notes over there hidden under a bunch of stuff. Do you want me to grab it?
sure.
Okay. This is a live show, people. Hold on. At least I think I see it. Yes, there it is. I take notes while we're in the session, and then I kind of go through them when we're getting ready for this. Okay. From your guide. But these are what my notes look like. It's kind of crazy, just so you know. But I have down exist in the experience, feeling of wholeness, be aware. Oh, and I wrote down everything is okay.
Yeah, that was a big message. It's just like they said, I mean, like they said this in my LBL too, but they emphasized it here as well. It's just like everything is okay. Everything's always okay because again, you're just here experiencing things. Like it's everything's always okay. You're okay.
Yeah, and everything doesn't have to be perfect, which
Exactly.
I love. I think that message was actually for me, so thank you.
Oh, that was 100% for me as well. So
Mhm. So, is there anything else you would like to add about this session or what you got out of the experience or that you would just want to share with other people? And actually, while you're thinking on that, somebody wrote, "Are you still artistic today?" And then David said, "Thank you for sharing your experiences. I'm all choked up and teary eyed. Very powerful message."
oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, that's very kind. I am artistic today as well too. I'm a musician, so I do more music things, but I also like to dabble in visually creative stuff as well. But
Okay,
yeah.
great. So, anything that you would like to share, or anything else that I didn't ask that you wanted to mention, or as you just
Mm.
reflect on? I know it's hard to separate out this session from the next session, but anything just that you want to include before we wrap up?
I think it was no, I think that's mostly everything. I remember like one thing I didn't mention was so like whenever I was leaving the body, so like whenever I died in that life and
Hmm.
I had like I was already like kind of far away, but I remember um having almost like an afterthought kind of where I like paused for a slight moment. Um and I thought about my mom and like wanting to reach out to her.
Mm-hmm.
Um but it was just again, I had already like shut down so much from that life, even as a soul. I wanted nothing to do with it. And I was like, "Ugh, it's fine." And I left. But again, like that was it just like kind of further demonstrated like all the feelings I was feeling in that life. And um again, how much things have changed now as well. But it was, I don't know, I felt like that was really powerful too, because it was showing me how much I had like yeah, shut down by that point, and I think that was, like, a significant thing to realize because I, obviously loved her so much.
Yeah. So even though you had a close family and especially a bond and a special relationship with your mom, you had closed your heart to the point that it was like, "Nah, I'm not even gonna check in with my mom before I go."
Yeah, it was just,
Kinda why
yeah,
bother?
it was just more like it was just too much to deal with, and I couldn't bring myself to be that open because I just didn't wanna
Mm,
feel all those things again.
the sadness.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but it was yeah, I don't know. But I felt like that was an important
Yeah, no,
moment.
and like I said, remember when I said when we do this, the nice thing is you get to process it at another level, which I love. And I get
Yeah.
to find out things I didn't get to find out because we don't really process it. We talk just for a couple of minutes after the session, but I'm going through this really intense thing with you too. And then it's like, okay,
Mhm.
bye. So I love getting to kind of explore it a little more fully. And especially because it's hard for you to tell me everything that's happening. Because to me, I feel like there's so much happening and you're kind of trying to funnel it down to answer my questions?
Exactly, yeah. It's such a rich experience, and then sometimes the questions are so specific, and,
Right.
to answer that, you have to cut out all the other things and just kinda get to the point,
Right.
but
Right. And so I'm not
yeah.
getting to know or hear all those other things. And sometimes I found people are so in the experience, it's almost hard to answer my questions because they don't really want to talk. They just want to be there. But
Yeah.
I'm also trying to get the story out, 1, so you'll remember it, and 2, for your recording, so you can so we and plus then I know where we're going and what we need to explore, but I know it's so
Exactly.
personal and intense. Sometimes I've had people be kind of almost, like, annoyed, like, "Oh my god, she's making me talk," because you're in the life?
Yeah. Yeah, there were definitely moments, especially in the LBL, where I was experiencing something and then you would talk and I'm just like, "No, stop."
"Leave me alone.
Yeah,
I'm over here having this great time." Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I
but
see
it
other
was
questions. What was that?
no, no, but it was just great, yeah.
It was great. It was great. Hooray for music and art. Thank you, David. The world needs more of this. That's for sure.
Yes.
That's for sure. David posted a really cool video of photography and his music. So he has
Oh,
interests like
cool.
you in our Facebook page.
Oh, nice, awesome. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I can't wait for you to come back. So it'll be January 13th to share
Mhm.
about the LBL. And just for those of you who are watching, I don't know how we've gone today. Oh my gosh, we went 42 minutes, Maggie.
Oh,
I was
wow.
I told her we might go a half an hour and I was going to say in the LBL, I think it'll be a long one because it
It
was a
will, yeah,
really involved session. So set
it
aside
was
an hour. Set aside
yeah,
an hour at
I
least.
will.
I'm telling people, the viewers too, the listeners,
Okay,
and for
yeah.
those of you who are listening. So January 13th, Maggie will graciously be back with us. So thank you very much for being with us today. Any final words before I'm going to transition to sharing some other things, some announcements and stuff, but anything else before we wrap up for
Not
today?
really, I think, if you these sessions are really cool, if you feel called to do it, and, yeah, I don't know, it's just a nice way to kinda get in touch with yourself and, feel that heart center space again.
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
wholeness. I love that. When
Yeah,
we're whole, then we can be truly independent because we can live from our heart. What did you say? Our heart space. Basically, we can be true to ourselves. That's what I
exactly, yeah,
believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
All
yes.
right. Well, thank you very much. And let me see if there's anything else. I can't wait. Thank you, Maggie.
Yeah,
And so
thanks.
yeah, I know it's going to be fun. So I'm going to switch over to just a few announcements. So I'm so happy that Maggie was able to share with us today. And then, like I said, her LBL was one of those out of this world ones. So we'll really look forward to it. And people are chiming in saying, thank you. Thank you for being with us. And so, just a few quick announcements. We have our first past life workshop happening in January 21st, in beautiful, spiritual Ojai, California. So, if you're nearby, I can't wait. It's our first one we have done since COVID. So, my wonderful assistant Leticia is putting the link, and it's on our page, our Life Between Lives Hypnosis.com page /events. And so I hope you'll join us. And if you would like, we have holiday discount codes that you can use on that and any other session, 10% off. And she's going to post the whole holiday codes too. I think they're actually already in there. Holiday 10, and for the package, holiday package 10, holiday PKG 10. And she'll also post these when she posts this on the podcast and YouTube, and it should show up in Facebook. So, oh, and since it is still the holidays, if you're listening in December, we have gift certificates available on our website, and we will post the links for those as well. So we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your support. And thank you so much, Maggie, for being with us and sharing your story. They're really personal stories. And so I know it's a big deal when you come on and share as you did. So thank you so much, and great to share and experience your story at a deeper level. And thank you, everybody, for watching. See you next time.
Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And join us next week for another episode of Soul Guide.